Alright guys, you got your boy Stingren here today, and today we're back with some of our 1999 content, and today we are here to talk about some teams that you can run for Moldir, starting from a budget to our main best team, and some fun team that I personally threw together that actually does see a solid reason for it to be put in. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Let's talk about the teams, how they work, and so on and so forth. Alright, so this is going to be the first team, and this team is going to be focusing around the budget version of the team. So this is budget version. This is basically the best that you can do. You can get Buddy Fairchild 100% for free, Name Day, Moldir, and Yensei as of course staples. Moldir and Name Day is a very fun combination, even outside of budget, because this allows you to double up on ultimate damage effects. If you guys don't know, Moldir and Name Day both have different ultimate damaging buffs. So Moldir actually can give you up to 100% ultimate damage from her tactical coordination buff when she's above 20 stacks of her readiness effect. And Name Day can give you up to 65 when he's at P5. At P0 or below, it's 50%, but that's still basically 150% ultimate damage that you're giving to your main target, which of course would be Buddy Fairchild, which is absolutely insane. Now, since these buffs are targeted to everyone, other allies would also benefit from the bonus too. Moldir wouldn't mind having the bonus for a little bit of extra power in her ult. And of course, Name Day's ult doesn't necessarily do damage, neither does Yensei. So the only real two applicants for the big ultimate damage bonus would be Buddy Fairchild and Moldir. But Moldir would actually be a really good fit for Buddy, because Buddy does like to spam ult pretty consistently. The only minor problem with this is that you don't really get to build up stacks of ceremonious critical damage, which comes from Moldir casting her ultimate, which is something that you want to do because you want to ideally put yourself in a situation where you at least have some stacks of ceremonious critical damage so you can hit just a tiny bit harder. But again, it's not necessarily required if your main playstyle is to quickly burst as fast as possible. But with Buddy Fairchild, you definitely want to go for his ult, because giving him the P5 for free, he can actually get up to a max of 1500% on his modifier for ult, and that's really strong for a 5-star character. For a 5-star main DPS, that's actually pretty good. And he also gives you damage dealt plus 45% as a helpful bonus as well, which will be great for his next rotation, because you should be able to get his ult by turn 2 before the buff does fall off, which is actually pretty nice. But this is primarily what the team is meant to do. Now, of course, Name Day will be here to, of course, supply you with the ultimate damage effect, give you extra damage dealt and damage heal, which is nice, and you will get additional moxie from himself, and also stacks of ceremonious too, which is also nice because that's also stack on top of Moldir's, who gives you ceremonious crit. This one gives you ceremonious, which is just ultimate might, which is, you know, really cool. So it's a cool little thing there between the two. Now, as you can see, ultimate might plus 3%, and then you get ceremonious crit damage from Moldir, which is pretty nice. Moldir will be our secondary support for the team, being able to give herself quite a bit of moxie. She can accelerate quite fast, especially if you allow her to. Also setting up passion drains to get to allow for Buddy Fairchild or even herself to ult quicker. This is very important if you want to maintain 30 stack requirement for having all of her buffs, because Moldir wants to have 30 stacks minimum, so she's going to apply all these buffs. So you can get the armor enhancement, which gives you 30% crit rate, and this gives you excess critical rate to critical damage at 100% ratio, which is great. And then you have tactical coordination with 30 stacks. I believe that gives you 60%, if I'm not mistaken, in total of ultimate, if you just stop at 30, which is still pretty nice. That's still really good effective damage, so would actually try to get to the 30. But if you nuke at 20, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. You just don't have the crit rate damage conversion, which could be a bit of a damage loss. And then you get assertiveness at 10. This one doesn't really do anything for team. It's just more so for her. It just gives her immunity to moxie disruption. So anything that can stop your moxie from hitting 5, which is her max, or even 10, because she does have moxie overflow built into her kit, then yeah, not nothing terrible though. That isn't anything terrible. It's just more so a little nice bonus for her. But that is ultimately what I would consider for her, is just go for that. And then of course you have Yensei for the healing, and then you have her for the shield. The cool thing is though is that Yensei does have a bit of moxie support within herself, because she can consume 1 stack of flow to give moxie plus 1 herself, and she can instantly have more stacks of flow if you have her higher investment. She's P0, then she won't have as many. I think she only gets like 2 at start, but still, that's still a good way for her to at least battery to her ult a little bit quicker, so you can get that big barrier, or the big shield rather. So that's something that you can definitely look forward to as well. But ultimately speaking, you want to run something like this if you're going budget, which is like if you just started the game, or you don't have like the premium options, you know, like some of the real strong options that we'll be highlighting later on in this video. But yeah, that is going to be the ideal team you want to run for your budget setup. So let's go over to the next team. Alright, so now this is the real de facto best team, which is her ultimate setup team, which is with Monalia, Medicine Pocket, and of course Moldir herself, and Ricoletta as the main DPS. Now for main DPS alternatives for Rico's case, there's really no other alternative. There's some other options I'm highlighting in a different team, but the only other option I would probably say is Hisbeth. But the problem with running Hisbeth with Moldir is Hisbeth doesn't really like to hold on to get more stacks of ceremonious crit damage, but she can actually build up Moxie very fast because of her his attacks, which give you Moxie. She effectively can ult basically every round, which is a good acceleration for Moldir, which is great. But on the bottom side of it, you don't get the other holding bonuses that you would get from Moldir, such as the ceremonious crit damage stacking that she would get from casting her ult. Now it's a little bit of a damage loss, but if you want very quick stacks, then either Ricoletta or Hisbeth would be your best 2 options for ultimate teams. That would pretty much be the main 2 that you would go. But of course, Ricoletta is perfect for Moldir because Moldir, while she does like to have ultimate spamming left and right, she does like to benefit her team by having people who can last a little bit longer before they ult. Ricoletta is the perfect example of this because Ricoletta wants to have max Moxie, which in this case would be 15. You want to have both stacks of Ensemble or Momo Mythic, if either or. If it's just like, if it's single target and you just want Momo Mythic because you can't get Ensemble. And you want to, of course, have Monalia's full buffs. And yeah, so that ultimately puts you in a situation where you can just hold on until you do what you need to do. This is really cool because this allows for Moldir to continuously riposte with her counter skill, which will allow her to actually do her ult if you use it correctly. If you use it correctly, then she will just simply cast her ult, which will give you additional bonuses. As you can see right here, as you can see when cast as a riposte, you gain 4 stacks of readiness, 1 stack of ceremonious crit damage, and doctrine to self to 2 rounds, which of course the doctrine itself was a little unfortunate because it's 20% ult might for her, but not to the team, which is a little bit oof, you know, like it's a little oof, but it is what it is, right? But it is still something that you can actively use for her to hit a little bit harder, which is still ultimately fine. But of course, you want her for the aforementioned bonuses, the crit rate, the +1 AP, which is something I didn't get to mention either in the other team. But the +1 AP is actually very important for this team because this, of course, allows you for more situations where you can set up setting up multiple burst rounds or multiple Moxie dumping rounds for teammates such as Monalia and Moldir herself, which is really good because she also has an ability to apply passion drain and ceremonious and continuous action, my bad. So that is really, really cool between the 2 synergy between the 2 of them, which is really nice. And of course, Medpoc is optional, but Medpoc is a really good debuffer for focusing down the main target with their big Momo Mythic nuke, because all you need to do is simply just debuff with them. And then with the improved version, she can shred critical resistance, which is actually really important. It gives you like a crit defense shred of like 40%, which is really, really good. And then you can just simply fire off Ricoletta's ult, and then you just go for big damage, right? That's ideally the ideal setup. If you don't have Medicine Pocket invested like I do, which someday I'll work on them. Someday. I keep having so many units to work on. Any other healer does work just as fine. I wouldn't choose Vila, not really, but I would choose someone who works like Fatutu. I think Fatutu would be a Overwise fine version, or a fine sustain that you can run for the team as well. She does also have built-in Moxie box. She also has a chance to build in Moxie +1 with 20% chance, which is still a little nice. It's also a little bit of a way to actually get some Moxie built into the team. But that is ideally something that you can absolutely run between this team here. This is primarily Moldir's best team. This is 100% her best team. without a shadow of a doubt, if you look on most websites, it will tell you this exact team with Medicine Pocket or Fatutu. There's some helpful alternatives that you could run, like Lapera, which is unironically kind of funny because you know why. If you know, you know. I won't spoil it for people who know, but if you know, you know. Lapera is a pretty good option here too if you don't have certain other options. I would say none of these, like Monalia is kind of unreplaceable, especially for her big ultimate damaging buff. Medicine Pocket is the only kind of replaceable option, so fitting Lapera in this team could be difficult. But if it's like if you just didn't have them, like if you didn't have Monalia, for example, then yeah, sure, run Lapera at that point. At that point, you can run her, which is something that you can do. This also would give you another strong instance of critical rate bonus. Remember, Moldir gives you 30%, and Lapera gives you 40% when she's in when her array field is active, and that's really good. So nice. Also, since Lapera has a lesser crit rate damage conversion, I believe it's 40%. This would not interfere with Moldir's critical rate critical damage conversion, which is 100%. If you don't know about that, any particular instance where there's multiple units that have different crit rate crit damage conversion ratios, the strongest one always overtakes. So that means since she's giving you 100% to everyone, then that 100% is going to stay active as opposed to Lapera's lessened version, but you still won't lose out on the critical rate, which is really nice. Also, running a Lapera Moldir team would sufficiently be a lot of crit rate because that's 70% crit rate between the two of them while the array field is active. Rigoletta has a really strong base crit rate, which is look at this. This is basically like 70% crit rate or close to 80% crit rate. So yeah, that would actually be a pretty sick combo if you really did pull that off. But for what it's worth, that is ultimately what the team is about. You just simply want Rigoletta, Moldir, Monalia, and Medicine Pocket as their respective partners for their respective bonuses. That is really just what they're there for. You want Medicine Pocket for the sustain, Monalia for the ultimate amp, and of course, also a secondary instance of putting a passion drain, ultimate crit rate crit damage and stuff like that, which stacks on top of the ceremonious that you get from Moldir, and of course Moldir for the +1 AP and all the extra bonuses. And yeah, now we go to the final team. Alright, and the final team that we're going to be talking about today is actually Marcus Rank Up Abuse. Now, the really cool thing about this team is that this team actually generates a lot of Moxie very fast, which is why Moldir can actually fit. The cool thing about this team and its core, which is currently Marcus, Vila, and Mercuria, is that they don't really have a strong fourth. A fourth would be something like a dedicated fourth, like there's options that you run with them, like Druvis, Anali. There's some other options that fit in there too, like other supports that you can throw in there just for their respective bonuses and everything, don't get me wrong. But there's now another opportunity to run Moldir in this team, because this team, again, can accumulate Moxie very fast. The really thing here is about Marcus's Percival, which gives you Moxie +1 every time you cast a rank 2 to 3 star incantation. This also triggers off of Mercuria's passive effect whenever there's 2 3-star cast incantations at P0, but at P1 it goes down to 2 2-stars. P1 will actually make this a lot more efficient, but of course with her antidote cube that does help. And Vila does give herself Moxie +1 at the end of the round, and she can also give allies Moxie +1 with her versatile card that's generated with an ult. So there's a lot of ways to build up Moxie with this team. Of course, don't forget that Moldir also applies Passion Drain, which is also another instance that you can use for other people to get Moxie as well. For example, if you really wanted to set up a double nuke round, for example, you can attack once with Marcus and then attack with Mercuria, and that's Moxie for the both of them, which could set up a double ult round for the both of them, which is really cool. Another thing that you can also do is that you can actually run Hizbeth in this team as well. With this exact same setup, you would just replace Mercuria with Lapera, because Hizbeth doesn't really care about Incantation Might at all. You technically can also throw Lapera in this team slot too. If you were to go the Lapera route for this team, then you want to put her here. And then you want to go like this, and then just like that, right? You want, actually no, you want it like this. You want Lapera Lapera in front of everyone, because that gives the ultimate damage bullet. That's what you want. You want the ult bullet, which is primarily what you'd want for this type of team if you're going the ultimate, like if you're really going just like ult route, right? If you're really just going 100% ult, then you go this way, right? You technically can even use Lepera for her incantation just to further support Marcus, because again, Marcus still has a strong 2 to 3 star casting of both her skills because of her euphoria. So either or doesn't necessarily matter, but if you're really harping in her ult, then you go this way. But if you don't really care, then you go like this, and it doesn't necessarily matter in this particular regard. But you only go this way if you want to harp in more on the ultimate focus. But if you want to go, you know, incantation might focus as well, but also providing 40% crit rate, which Marcus does desperately need, because even with her euphoria, her crit rate still isn't the highest, and this is a lot of crit rate that you're giving to your team and critical damage. So that is a really strong bonus. Remember, you're getting a total of 30% from Vila. If you have a higher investment, that means more crit rate. You're getting 40% critical damage. You're getting critical damage for ultimates from her. You're getting 30% if you can reach 30 stacks, which you can do with this team. And then you're getting another 40% from her. So this is a lot of crit rate that is going to make beautiful sense with Marcus's ability to convert crit rate into critical damage at a natural rate. She doesn't need Moldir's because she already comes bundled with them, bundled with one with her euphoria. So that's really, really good. And one of the things I will say about this team is it's really fun. I think this is probably one of the more funner teams I've gotten to use and test. I tried running her in Dynamo. I didn't really feel like it was really working too much there, because Dynamo is more about timed burst, when you kind of want a team that can really just fire off ults repeatedly so that way you can achieve those stacks. I think she would have worked better in Dynamo if her buff wasn't timed. That's one of the biggest issues I have with Moldir, is readiness is a timed buff. It's for 3 rounds, which is a little annoying because you kind of want those high stacks so you can get those high strong bonuses, but ultimately it is what it is. But yeah, but whichever version you go with, which is Mercuria and Mercuria or Lepera, it's ultimately up to you what you personally want to do for the combination, because it doesn't necessarily matter. Both of them both provide the relevant bonuses that you need. So yeah, she gives you crit rate, crit damage, she gives you crit rate, crit damage, she gives you crit rate ultimate critical damage, but not just base crit damage. But still, you know, still relevant bonuses can give you a lot. And one of the cool things that I like to mention too is that while you don't necessarily need to cast a +1 AP on her, because Marcus gives you +1 AP once she reaches a certain stack of life experience, the cool thing is with Moldir, you can actually trigger +1 AP scenarios a little early, which is good for kind of like getting yourself situated early, as opposed to just waiting for Marcus to get the buff manually, which is fine. I mean, once you kind of get the buff, then you're kind of just coasting. You'll have the effect pretty much off forever, and then it means you can kind of just have Moldir relegated to just casting her counter skill, which of course will allow her to trigger her ult whenever she gets hit or an ally gets hit. So really nice, really nice, right? Really nice. But that is going to be it for that team as well. That is the main instance of what I wanted to provide for you guys here today. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. As always, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. What are some of the teams that you're running with Moldir right now? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.